Laura Meyers thought she'd finally found love when she matched with Ethan Cole on Tinder, but within 5 days, the 42-year-old nurse from Indiana would be found buried in the woods, her dream date exposed as a deadly deception. Laura Meyers had spent most of her adult life keeping things steady and predictable. At 42, she was the kind of woman who believed in order and calm. She woke up every morning before sunrise, brewed her coffee the same way, and left for her nursing shift at the Bloomington Community Hospital with her hair tied neatly in a bun. Her coworkers admired her professionalism but often wondered why she never talked much about her personal life. The truth was, Laura had been alone for years. A long-term relationship had ended in disappointment, and after that, she had quietly convinced herself that love was something meant for other people. Her evenings were spent in the company of books, true crime podcasts, and the occasional glass of wine. She loved observing human behavior, even the darker sides of it, but she never imagined she would one day become the subject of such a story herself. It was early October when a friend convinced her to try dating apps again. "You're too kind to be alone," her friend had told her. So one Sunday afternoon, after hours of hesitation, Laura downloaded Tinder. At first, it felt strange, the endless profiles, the quick swipes, the artificial charm of strangers trying too hard. But then she stumbled upon *** Ethan Cole ***. His profile seemed refreshingly normal. A man in his late 30s, clean cut, smiling beside a golden retriever in one photo and hiking in another. He claimed to be a construction manager from Columbus, Indiana. His bio was short, but it was what caught her attention. Looking for something real. They matched instantly, and almost as soon as the app notified her, Ethan sent a message. He wasn't pushy or inappropriate. He asked about her favorite hiking trails and whether she preferred lakes or mountains. Laura felt safe talking to him. The conversation flowed naturally, no awkward pauses, no empty compliments. Over the next few days, their messages turned into long chats about family, work, and the simple things they both enjoyed: coffee, dogs, and quiet mornings. Ethan said he had recently moved for work and was looking to settle down somewhere peaceful. Every word seemed to line up perfectly with what Laura wanted to hear. She began checking her phone more often, smiling when his messages came through. Her coworkers noticed she seemed lighter, happier. She even changed her hairstyle for the first time in years, trimming her hair to her shoulders and wearing lipstick again. Megan, her closest friend, teased her about finally glowing again. By Thursday, Ethan suggested they meet in person. He proposed a small cafe near Lake Lemon, somewhere open, sunny, and quiet. Laura hesitated but eventually agreed. She wanted to believe that maybe this was fate, that her patience had finally brought her something good. That Friday morning, she spent extra time getting ready. She wore a light blue dress with a denim jacket, simple earrings, and her favorite perfume. Before leaving, she texted Megan that she was meeting Ethan and would call afterward. She drove off with excitement and nerves swirling inside her, unaware that the cafe by the lake would be the last destination she would ever reach. The security cameras later showed her car pulling into the cafe parking lot at 12:16 p.m., sunlight flickering on the windshield. She waited, checking her phone, brushing her hair back, and glancing toward the entrance. For nearly 20 minutes, no one came. Then a man in a gray hoodie appeared, walking straight toward her. She stepped out of the car with a nervous smile. What followed was a brief hug, a short conversation, and then both of them getting into her car. It drove away slowly, blending into the ordinary rhythm of the afternoon. No one in the cafe realized they had just witnessed the beginning of a nightmare. When Laura didn't show up for her Saturday morning shift, her coworkers assumed she was taking a well-deserved weekend off. She had mentioned meeting someone new, so no one thought much of it. But when Monday came and her car was missing from her driveway, her phone went straight to voicemail, and she hadn't returned any calls, the concern turned into fear. Megan tried to stay calm, telling herself that maybe Laura had gone on a short trip. Maybe she just wanted to disconnect for a few days. But deep down, she knew something wasn't right. Laura was responsible to a fault. She never disappeared without telling someone. By Monday afternoon, Megan went to the police. She showed them the last text message Laura had sent before meeting Ethan. Asterisk, heading to the cafe now, wish me luck. Asterisk after that, nothing. Detectives from Monroe County quickly took the case, aware that time was critical in missing persons investigations. They started with the basics, checking her phone records, her bank account, and her car registration. Everything had stopped abruptly after Friday. No withdrawals, no credit card activity, no calls or texts. It was as if Laura had vanished into thin air. The first real lead came from her Tinder account. Ethan Cole's profile was still there, but something about it felt off. The photos looked too perfect sharp, well lit, almost like stock images. The number he used wasn't registered to any local provider, and the name didn't appear in any employment databases. Within hours of police beginning their inquiries, Ethan's Tinder account vanished. His photos, his messages, everything disappeared, leaving behind only traces in Laura's chat history. Detectives began collecting surveillance footage from around the cafe. It was a small family-owned spot near Lake Lemon, surrounded by tall trees and quiet roads. The camera outside the parking lot captured Laura's silver sedan pulling in at 12:16 p.m. She waited, adjusting her mirror, looking at her phone. Then a man appeared, wearing a gray hoodie and dark jeans, walking straight toward her. The video didn't show his face clearly. They spoke for less than a minute before she got out, smiled faintly, and hugged him. After that, she got into the driver's seat, and the car slowly exited the frame. It was the last confirmed sighting of her. When detectives showed the footage to Megan, she broke down. Laura's body language didn't suggest fear. She looked relaxed, trusting. The realization that she had felt safe with this man made the situation even more chilling. By Tuesday morning, a missing person alert went public. Local news stations aired Laura's photo and the description of her car, hoping someone might have seen her. Hundreds of tips came in, but none led to her. The cafe staff remembered seeing her car, but not the man she met. The few customers there that day couldn't identify him either. It was as though he had appeared from nowhere and vanished just as quickly. Investigators traced possible routes from the cafe, focusing on the roads leading north toward the woods and rural towns. Drone searches and volunteer teams scoured the area, but the thick forest made progress slow. As the hours turned into days, hope began to fade. The calm autumn weekend that had started with excitement had now transformed into a nightmare for everyone who knew Laura. Her parents flew in from Michigan, devastated and confused. They sat in the police station, clutching the photo of their daughter, a kind, gentle woman who had simply wanted to find love. Detectives worked around the clock, piecing together fragments of her final hours. Every clue pointed to Ethan, yet no one could find him. He had no address, no real phone number, no traceable job. By the end of the 5th day, the search had intensified, stretching across multiple counties. Then, just as the investigation seemed to stall, a state trooper reported finding an abandoned car on a dirt road 30 miles north of Bloomington. It matched Laura's description. Her silver sedan sat quietly under the shade of the trees, engine cold, doors locked, and no sign of her. The discovery would lead investigators into the dark woods and into the horrifying truth of what had really happened to her. The silver sedan was found parked at an odd angle near the edge of a dense forest off County Road 47. It looked untouched, as if someone had placed it there deliberately. When detectives arrived, they noticed that the car was locked, but a window on the driver's side had been slightly rolled down. Inside, Laura's purse was on the passenger seat, her phone tucked neatly beside it, and a half-finished cup of coffee sat in the cup holder, long gone cold. There was no sign of a struggle, no broken glass, no fingerprints other than hers. But something about the scene felt wrong. The driver's seat was pushed far back, far enough that someone taller must have driven the car last. As investigators examined the ground around the vehicle, they noticed two distinct sets of footprints. One set matched the soles of Laura's shoes, The other was larger, heavier, and led away from the car toward the trees. Not far from the tracks were tire marks, faint but clear enough to show that another vehicle had been there. The deep impressions suggested a pickup truck or SUV. The direction of the tracks led into the woods, stopping abruptly as if the vehicle had turned off into a hidden path. Search teams were called in immediately. K-9 units and drones began scanning the area while officers combed through the thick undergrowth. The forest was eerily silent, the kind of quiet that felt deliberate. Within an hour, one of the dogs picked up a scent. It followed the trail deep into the woods, weaving between trees and over a narrow creek until it stopped near a small clearing. Beneath a pile of branches and damp leaves, the ground looked recently disturbed. When detectives began digging, their fears were confirmed. Wrapped in a thin green camping tarp were human remains, partially buried and concealed with debris. The air was thick with the smell of decay, and though the body had already begun decomposing, pieces of Laura's clothing were immediately recognizable, the same light blue dress and denim jacket she had worn the day she vanished. Her jewelry was still intact, her watch still on her wrist, frozen at 12:59 p.m. The medical examiner arrived within hours. The initial examination revealed bruising on the neck and skull fractures consistent with blunt force trauma. There were no defensive wounds, suggesting she might have been attacked suddenly, possibly from behind. Her phone, found in her car, showed no new messages or calls after the time she left the cafe. It seemed she had gone willingly with Ethan, trusting him until the very end. The campsite nearby offered more disturbing clues. Investigators found a half-empty bottle of water, cigarette butts, and a piece of rope stained with blood. Forensics teams collected samples while detectives mapped out the surrounding area. Less than 30 feet away, they discovered the faint remains of a campfire, recently extinguished, and an empty fuel can. It looked like someone had been living there temporarily, but deliberately long enough to prepare a place to hide something or someone. The news broke across Indiana by nightfall. Laura Meyers, the missing nurse from Bloomington, had been found dead in the woods. The story spread quickly through social media, and people who had followed her disappearance now shared her photo with grief and outrage. Police confirmed that the man she met through Tinder, known as Ethan Cole, was the prime suspect, but when they searched databases across multiple states, they found nothing. No man with that name, that face, or that phone number existed. For detectives, this changed everything. They realized they were not dealing with a simple case of violence or a one-time encounter gone wrong. The careful disposal of the body, the wiped identity, and the fake profile pointed to someone who had done this before. The man Laura thought was Ethan Cole wasn't just a stranger from a dating app. He was a ghost who had learned how to disappear, and now he had left only one thing behind: a body buried beneath the Indiana woods, and a trail colder than the autumn air that surrounded it. The investigation into Laura's death shifted from a missing person case to a manhunt. Detectives poured through every lead, focusing on uncovering the real identity behind the name Ethan Cole. Digital forensics traced the Tinder account's creation to a temporary phone number purchased online and linked to a prepaid SIM card. The email address used for registration was fake, created just days before the murder. But beneath that false identity, investigators discovered fragments of reused data, a recurring pattern in how the fake profiles were built. Those details, combined with partial matches in previous fraud reports, led them to a name that had been buried in criminal databases for years: Tyler Henson. Tyler was 44, a drifter who had moved across several states under multiple aliases. He had a history of small-time scams, assault, and impersonation. Police records showed that he had been arrested twice for stalking women he'd met online, but was never convicted due to lack of evidence. Each time, he reinvented himself: new name, new photos, new story. He had lived in Ohio, Kentucky, and Illinois, taking construction jobs that lasted a few weeks before he vanished again. Wherever he went, there were rumors: women who reported him for harassment, landlords who found fake IDs left behind, and neighbors who described him as polite but off. Detectives dug into his background further. Tyler had grown up in foster care, drifting between homes, and by his 20s, he was already running cons posing as mechanics, contractors, even church volunteers. His method was always the same. He earned trust quickly, moved fast, and disappeared when things became complicated. In the months before Laura's death, investigators believe he had been living in a rundown farmhouse near Lake Monroe, about 40 minutes from Bloomington. When officers searched the property, what they found was chilling. Inside the abandoned home were traces of his double life. In a small room at the back, they found camping equipment, clothes, a laptop, and several driver's licenses, all with different names but the same face. The air smelled faintly of smoke and fuel. On a wooden table sat an old phone, its SAM card burnt. Nearby, inside a cardboard box, police discovered a woman's necklace, a pair of sunglasses and a half-burned notebook filled with names and dates. Blood was found on the handle of a shovel in the shed behind the house. Forensics later confirmed it was Laura's. It became clear that the meeting at the cafe had not been random. Tyler had been planning it. The tarp used to wrap her body matched the ones found stacked in his shed, along with ropes and gloves. He had stalked her online, studied her habits, and chosen her carefully. Detectives issued a nationwide warrant for Tyler Henson's arrest. But by the time the farmhouse was raided, he was gone. Witnesses recalled seeing a man matching his description hiking along a highway toward Kentucky. When state police set up checkpoints, they found nothing. Surveillance footage from a gas station captured him just once more wearing a baseball cap, paying in cash, and driving what appeared to be an old blue truck. The story exploded across the media. Headlines called him the Tinder Phantom. Dozens of women came forward, claiming they had spoken to men online who looked like Ethan Cole. Each story followed the same script: fast trust, charm, sudden disappearance. It was now clear that Tyler wasn't just a con artist. He was a predator who had learned how to hide behind screens, using the illusion of romance to hunt his victims. As days turned into weeks, the manhunt grew wider. Tips flooded in from surrounding states, but every lead ended the same way: too late. Tyler Henson had become a shadow, vanishing just before anyone got close. Investigators began to fear that unless he made a mistake, they might never find him. And for the friends and family of Laura Meyers, justice seemed to be slipping further away with each passing day. Weeks turned into months, and the story of Laura Meyers refused to fade from the headlines. Her murder had shaken the quiet town of Bloomington and ignited a broader fear across Indiana. News anchors replayed her smiling photos: the nurse with the kind eyes, the woman who had simply wanted love, as police appealed to the public for information about Tyler Henson's whereabouts. The FBI joined the search, classifying him as a fugitive with violent tendencies and a history of deception. Tips poured in from across state lines, but every lead seemed to dissolve into thin air. Tyler had become a ghost again, slipping through gaps in surveillance, blending into crowds, always one step ahead. Behind the scenes, detectives worked tirelessly to connect Tyler to other disappearances. In Ohio, a woman had gone missing 2 years earlier after meeting a man on a dating app named Ryan Keller. In Kentucky, a teacher reported being followed by someone who used a similar fake profile. In both cases, the online photos and messages bore the same patterns: identical phrases, the same borrowed words, even the same grammar mistakes. Investigators began to believe Laura had not been his first victim, only the first whose story reached the public. As the search expanded, small clues began surfacing. In mid-November, a fisherman near the Ohio River spotted something caught against the rocks, a black duffel bag, waterlogged and torn at one end. When authorities pulled it to shore, the contents sent chills through everyone at the scene. Inside were a pair of muddy boots, a faded denim jacket, a blood-stained pocket knife, and a sealed plastic pouch containing a handwritten note. The writing was slanted and messy, but the signature at the bottom was unmistakable: *** Tyler Henson. *** the note read simply, ** she wasn't supposed to scream, I just wanted her to stay. ** the discovery reignited the investigation, but it raised more questions than answers. There was no body, No vehicle, no trace of where Tyler had gone next. Some investigators believed he had jumped into the river after dumping the bag, choosing to end his life before capture. Others argued it was a diversion, a staged scene meant to throw authorities off his trail while he escaped using yet another identity. For weeks, the Ohio River was searched, but nothing else was found. The water was cold and deep, and the currents strong enough to carry anything miles downstream. Eventually, officials called off the dive operations, declaring that if Tyler had drowned, his body might never surface. But not everyone was convinced. Several witnesses in neighboring states claimed to have seen a man resembling him in Tennessee, in Missouri, and even as far as Arkansas, always alone, always paying in cash, always disappearing before anyone could confirm. The case of Laura Meyers became more than just a crime story. It became a symbol of the hidden dangers behind online connections. The tragedy led to community awareness campaigns and new safety measures on dating platforms. Laura's friends created a foundation in her name, dedicated to educating women about online safety and the risks of meeting strangers without verification. Her parents attended every memorial, holding on to the hope that one day the man who stole their daughter's life would be found. Despite the national attention, Tyler Henson's fate remains a mystery. Some believe he drowned that night, his guilt dragging him to the depths of the river. Others insist he's still out there, living under another name, watching, waiting for another chance. For the people of Bloomington, the thought of his survival is the darkest part of all, because it means the man who killed Laura Meyers might still be walking among them, blending into another town, smiling with the same practiced charm that once fooled her. Years later, detectives still keep her case file open, a reminder that evil doesn't always hide in shadows. Sometimes it hides behind a screen, waiting for someone kind enough to believe in love.